Commander Teo stood in the observation deck of the massive warship called the Indomitable. His eyes were fixed on the dark space ahead, watching the stars twinkle like small diamonds scattered across black velvet. Behind him, the entire crew of the ship moved silently, each person focused on their own job. They knew something important was about to happen, something that would change everything for humanity among the stars. A message had arrived 3 weeks ago from the Celestial Council, the group of alien species that controlled most of the known galaxy. The message was simple but heavy with meaning. They wanted to inspect humanity's newest and most powerful warship. The Indomitable was humanity's pride, the biggest and most advanced ship that Earth had ever built. Now the aliens wanted to see what humans had created. Teo had been a military officer for over 20 years. He had seen many things during his time in space. He had met aliens from different worlds, traded with them, and sometimes fought them. But this inspection was different. This was about power. This was about proving that humanity belonged among the stars as equals, not as children who needed to be told what to do. Lieutenant Hai-Jun was Teo's second in command. She sat at the main control station, her fingers moving quickly across the glowing screens. She was young, smart, and brave. She had been with Teo for 5 years, and they worked together like a perfect machine. Right now, she was preparing the ship for the inspection. Every system needed to be ready. Every detail needed to be perfect. "The alien inspection vessel will arrive in 1 hour, Commander," Hai-Jun said, without looking away from her screens. Her voice was calm, but Teo could hear a small note of worry underneath. "Thank you, Lieutenant," Teo replied. He placed his hand on her shoulder. "Make sure all the crew members understand their jobs. No mistakes today." Dr. Su Jin was the chief engineer of the Indomitable. She had spent the last 6 years learning every part of this ship. She knew where each wire went, how each machine worked, and what each system could do. She was in the engine room now, checking everything one more time. The engines of the Indomitable were not ordinary engines. They were powerful beyond what most people could understand. These engines could move the ship faster than light itself, bending space and time around them. When Su Jin received the news about the inspection, she had felt something cold run down her spine. The aliens did not know the full truth about what the Indomitable could do. They thought it was just a regular warship, powerful, but not too different from their own ships. But the truth was much more complicated. The Indomitable had secrets, secrets that could change how the aliens saw humanity forever. She walked through the long metal corridors of the engine room, her boots making soft sounds on the floor. The huge machines around her hummed quietly, working without stopping. She checked numbers on her computer. She looked at energy readings. She made sure that everything was hidden properly, everything that needed to be hidden. The inspection was arranged because the Celestial Council was worried. For the last few years, humanity had been growing stronger very quickly. Humans had built new colonies on distant worlds. They had created new technology. They had learned to fight well in space. The other alien species were not happy about this. They were afraid that humans might become too powerful, that humans might not follow the rules that the Council had made. There were 3 main species in the Celestial Council. The Vethkari were made of a crystal-like material that could bend light and glow different colors. They were very old and very wise, or at least they believed they were. They had rules for everything. The Solari were a species that could read thoughts and send messages through their minds. They said they were peaceful, but everyone knew they used their mind powers to control other beings. The Karuvian Collective was the strangest of all. They were not even alive in the way that humans understood life. They were machines, created thousands of years ago, and they had been running themselves for all that time with no one to turn them off. These 3 species together ruled most of the galaxy, and now they wanted to make sure that humans were not a danger to them. Teo understood this situation completely. He had prepared for it his whole life. The Indomitable had been built for many reasons. One reason was protection. Humans needed to be able to protect themselves in the dangerous universe. But there was another reason, too, a reason that Teo did not like to think about. The Indomitable was built to be able to fight all the main species if it had to. It was built to survive anything. The commander walked to a quiet part of the observation deck, away from the other officers. He opened a private communication channel. Only 3 people in the entire ship knew this channel existed. One was Su Jin, the engineer. The others were Captain Yuna, who led the weapons team, and Commander Park, who oversaw all of the secret military systems. "This is Teo," he said quietly into the small device. "Everyone ready?" The answers came back quickly, one by one. "Yes, Commander, yes, sir. Everything is prepared." Teo closed his eyes for a moment. What was about to happen was both necessary and dangerous. The aliens would see things today that would change their minds about humans. But he hoped they would see something else, too. He hoped they would see that humans were not monsters. He hoped they would see that humans only built these weapons because they had no choice. Because the universe was not a safe place. Because other species had not always been kind to humans, even when humans tried to be peaceful. He opened his eyes and looked out at the stars again. The inspection vessel was coming. It would arrive soon. The aliens would walk through the Indomitable and see many things. They would see the strength of human technology. They would see the courage of human soldiers. They would see the future that humans were building among the stars, and they would be terrified. But right now, as Teo waited in the quiet of the observation deck, he felt something that he had not expected to feel. He felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, this inspection would show the Celestial Council that humans deserved respect. Humans deserved a real place in the galaxy, not as servants or pets, but as equals. The Indomitable had been built to prove this point. Today, it would finally get the chance. The inspection team arrived right on time. Their vessel was nothing like the Indomitable. It was smaller, sleeker, and designed more for observation than for battle. When it docked with the large human warship, the connection made a soft hissing sound as the airlocks sealed together. There were 4 visitors from the Celestial Council. The first was Veltharos, a Vethkari who sparkled like a living crystal when the light hit him. His body was not solid like a human body. It was made of some kind of clear material that could refract light into different colors. When he moved, he seemed to leave trails of rainbow colors behind him. He spoke with a voice that sounded like wind chimes, high and clear and beautiful. But his words were always sharp and careful. The second visitor was Ambassador Lyra, a Solari. Her skin was very pale and thin, almost see-through. Blue lines ran across her body like roads on a map. These lines were part of her nervous system, and they could glow when she used her mind powers. She was tall and moved very slowly and carefully, as if she was always thinking about each step before she took it. She did not speak out loud very much. Instead, she would send thoughts directly into the minds of other beings. The third visitor was Unit 7, a Karuvian collective representative. It was hard to describe what Unit 7 looked like. It was not a person at all. It was more like a machine that had been shaped somewhat like a body. It had a metal frame, smooth surfaces, and glowing lights where its eyes should be. It moved with perfect mechanical precision, never wasting emotion. Its voice was completely without emotion, like a computer speaking. The fourth visitor was Dr. Kane. He was human, or at least he looked human. His DNA was human, but he had lived among the alien species for so long that he seemed more alien than human sometimes. He had been sent by the Council to provide an objective view of the inspection. The Council wanted someone who understood both humans and aliens to watch what happened. Dr. Kane understood humans because he was one. He understood aliens because he had spent decades studying them. He seemed quiet and thoughtful, and he had a slight smile on his face that nobody could quite read. Commander Teo met them at the main docking area. He was dressed in his best uniform, a dark blue suit with medals showing his years of service to humanity's space program. Beside him stood Lieutenant Yun-Ah. She was the tactical officer and one of the bravest people on the ship. Her job was to manage all the weapons and defense systems. Teo trusted her completely. "Welcome aboard the Indomitable," Teo said, bowing slightly in a way that showed respect. "We are honored by the Celestial Council's interest in our operations." Veltharos's form shimmered and changed colors. "Your species has been quite the surprise in the galactic community, Commander. So young, so aggressive in your expansion. We have come to understand what you are doing out here in the stars." "We prefer the term ambitious," Teo replied with a small smile. "We are not here to cause trouble. We are here to explore, to learn, and to make a place for ourselves among the stars." The tour of the ship began. The first stop was the crew quarters, where the human sailors and officers lived during their long journeys through space. The quarters were simple but clean. Each person had a small room with a bed, a desk, and storage space. The walls had decorations. Some had paintings. Others had photographs of family members back on Earth. Some had pictures of beautiful places in space that they had visited. Ambassador Lyra moved slowly through the corridors, her mind reading the surface thoughts of the crew members they passed. Her large eyes looked at the decorations with great interest. "You dedicate your resources to art," she said. It was not a question. "This is strange. Most advanced civilizations focus their resources on technology and survival." Ensign Jiwoo was the communications officer who was showing them around. He was young, maybe 25 years old, with bright eyes and a quick mind. He had been chosen for this job because he spoke several alien languages and he understood how to work with different species. "We call it soul," Jiwoo said. His voice was steady and clear. "When humans work hard and do difficult jobs, we need to remember why we are doing them. We need to remember what we are fighting for. That is what art does. Art reminds us that we are not just machines. We are not just soldiers. We are people who love and dream and hope for better things." Lyra made a sound that was like wind moving through trees. In her mind, the idea of needing art to stay motivated seemed very strange. But she did not argue about it. They moved next to the medical bay. Dr. Min-Soo was in charge of keeping all the crew healthy. The medical bay was a large room filled with advanced equipment. There were machines that could fix broken bones, heal injuries, and even replace damaged organs. Dr. Min-Soo showed the visitors the surgical suites, the places where operations could be done. He explained how humans could repair almost any injury, given enough time and technology. Unit 7 scanned everything with its mechanical eyes. The lights in its body blinked slowly as it processed information. "Your biological repair techniques are primitive," it said in its flat voice. "However, they are effective given your limitations." "Interesting." The visitors said nothing about whether they were impressed or not. The most important part of the tour came when they visited the training simulators. This was where human soldiers practiced for battle. The simulators created pictures of space battles that felt completely real. Young recruits could practice fighting without any real danger. But what made the council visitors uncomfortable was what the simulators showed. The battle simulations were not just random attacks. They were based on real combat situations. Some of them showed battles against Vethkari ships. Some showed battles against Solari forces. Some showed battles against Koruvian machines. It was clear that humans had studied how these alien species fought. It was clear that humans had built strategies to defeat them. Veltharos's color changed from blue to red, then to angry orange. "Commander, these combat algorithms, they are based on tactical analysis of our defense patterns. How did humans learn these patterns? Teo remained calm. His face showed nothing. We study all potential opponents. This is standard military doctrine. I am sure that your own academies do the same. It is only good sense to prepare for all possibilities. The silence that followed was very heavy. All four visitors understood what Teo had just said. He was right. The Council also studied possible enemies. The Council also prepared for war with species that might become dangerous. But hearing a young human species say this out loud, hearing the confidence in his voice, made them uncomfortable in a way they could not quite express. Unit 7 made a soft beeping sound. It was the Caruvian way of showing concern. Ambassador Lyra's blue lines grew brighter, showing that her emotions were strong. Veltharos changed colors again, moving through the rainbow very quickly. Dr. Kane said nothing. He just watched and observed, his small smile staying exactly the same. The tour continued deeper into the most secret parts of the Indomitable. The tension in the air grew thicker with each level they descended. The visitors could feel that something important was coming, something that would change everything. The walls became thicker, the doors became heavier, the security systems became more advanced. This was the heart of the ship, where the real power lived. Dr. Sujin was waiting for them in the engine room. She stood in front of the massive fusion reactors that powered the entire warship. These machines were enormous, rising up like metal mountains from the floor. They hummed with tremendous energy, a deep sound that could be felt in the bones. The heat from them was so strong that special cooling systems had to work constantly to keep the room at a safe temperature. Sujin looked very professional, but anyone who knew her well could see that she was nervous. Her hands were steady as she pointed to the different systems, but her jaw was tight. She knew that once she explained what these reactors could do, everything would change. "This is our primary power generation system," she said, speaking in the clear voice she used when she was teaching. "We are currently operating at 73% capacity. This level of power is enough to run all the basic systems of the Indomitable and to maintain our standard operations. However, this is not the whole picture." She pressed a command on her computer. Numbers appeared on large screens around the room. The numbers told a story of power and capability that made the visiting aliens very uncomfortable. Unit 7's optical sensors brightened. It made several beeping sounds in quick succession. These sounds meant that it was processing something very important and very surprising. "Your warp field generator," Lyra began. Her mental voice came into the minds of everyone in the room, and it carried a note of fear. "The power requirements in these readings, they are much higher than they should be. You are capable of achieving velocities that we thought were decades away from human capability." Sujin nodded. Her voice did not shake, but it was very quiet. "That is correct. Our warp drive can move the Indomitable faster than anything we have seen from the Council species. But that is still not everything." She pressed another command. New information filled the screens. The data showed something that made Veltharos stop moving completely. His usual rainbow color faded to a dull gray. "The quantum processors," Sujin continued. She seemed to be choosing each word very carefully, like she was placing bricks in a wall. "We have optimized the warp field geometry beyond theoretical predictions. The mathematics show that we can now achieve velocities and field configurations that your species has not attempted. And we have learned how to use this knowledge in ways that you probably have not considered. You have weaponized your propulsion system," Veltharos said. It was not a question. He said it the way someone might say that they had discovered something very dangerous in a place where it should not be. "The gravitational harmonics created by your warp field, they can be modified. They can be tuned to create destructive forces. You could use your own warp field as a weapon." Dr. Kane's small smile disappeared. He looked at Sujin with eyes that seemed to see into her very soul. He was beginning to understand what was happening. He was beginning to understand that the inspection was going to reveal things that would make the Celestial Council very afraid. Commander Teo stepped forward. He wanted to make sure that everything was understood correctly. He wanted to make sure that the alien visitors understood that humanity had not done anything wrong. They had simply done what any intelligent species would do. The Indomitable was designed with certain defensive capabilities, Teo said. His voice was strong and clear. As humans explored deeper into space, we needed the ability to protect ourselves. If negotiations failed, if we encountered hostility, we needed to be able to fight back. We needed to survive. Unit 7 made a series of complex beeping sounds. When it finally spoke in its mechanical voice, the words were very serious. You have violated the Geneva Space Accords. These are the rules that all Council species have agreed to follow. Clause 7. Subsection 4 clearly states that weaponized faster-than-light capabilities are forbidden. This is considered to be a weapon of mass destruction. We did not know about these accords when we designed this ship, Teo replied. Humans had not yet joined the Council. We were building our own technology without guidance from outside sources. Now that we are part of the Council, we accept these rules. But there was something in the way he said this that suggested he might not entirely mean it. There was something in his voice that said humans would do what they needed to do to survive, rules or not. The tour of the engine room continued, but the atmosphere had changed completely. Veltharos's colors were now pale and uncertain. Lyra's blue lines were glowing so brightly that they seemed to light up the entire room. Unit 7 was making constant calculations, its optical sensors moving back and forth as it tried to process what it was learning. Sujin continued to explain the various systems. She showed them the quantum processors that controlled the warp field. She showed them the cooling systems that kept everything from overheating. She showed them the backup generators and the emergency power systems. Every detail was impressive. Every system showed that humans were not just playing at space exploration. Humans were serious. Humans were building technology that matched or exceeded anything the Council had. How many of these weapons have you created? Lyra asked. How many warships with this technology exist? The Indomitable is the first, Sujin said. We have been working on this design for many years. It took all of our resources to build just one ship. But we have the plans. We have the knowledge. If we needed to, we could build more. This was perhaps the scariest thing that any of them had said all day, because it did not matter if there was only one Indomitable right now. What mattered was that humanity could build more if they wanted to. What mattered was that humanity had the intelligence and the skill to create advanced weapons that could threaten the entire Council. Dr. Kane walked slowly around the engine room, looking at everything with great interest. His expression was difficult to read, but there was a sadness in his eyes. He had lived among the alien species long enough to understand their culture. He knew that they would see the Indomitable as a threat. He knew that this day would change the relationship between humanity and the Council forever. The last thing they saw in the engine room was a control panel that showed the energy output of the ship. Currently, it was at 73% capacity, as Sujin had said, but the display also showed the maximum possible output. It showed what the Indomitable could do if all of its power was unleashed. If the ship was running at full capacity, the numbers were almost too large to understand. Veltharos looked at the number for a long time. Then he looked at Tayo, and when he spoke, his voice was very small and very frightened. How many of your enemies do you think the Indomitable could destroy at full power? Tayo did not answer immediately. When he finally did speak, his words were simple and true. All of them, he said. There was a moment of complete silence in the engine room. No one moved. No one spoke. The humming of the reactors and the cooling system seemed to become very loud. The visitors from the Celestial Council were shocked into complete stillness. Even Unit 7 stopped moving, its optical sensors fixed on the commander of the Indomitable. Commander Teo made a decision at that moment. He could have continued pretending. He could have shown them false readings. He could have played games, hiding the truth and hoping they would not discover it. He could have sent them back to the council with incomplete information. But that was not the kind of leader Teo was. He believed that honesty was better than deception, even when honesty was dangerous. He opened a private communication channel with his most trusted officers. There were only two of them besides himself who knew everything about the Indomitable's true capabilities. One was Sergeant Nari, who commanded all the weapon systems on the entire ship. The other was Captain Yuna, who oversaw all the secret military technology that humans had developed. "This is the commander," Teo said quietly into the small device. "It is time. Show them everything." The response came back quickly. "Understood, Commander. Displaying full systems now." The screens around them changed. New information began to appear. This information was not about power generation. This information was about weapons. Lots of weapons. So many weapons that the visitors began to move backward in shock. Dr. Kane's small smile disappeared completely. He looked at the screens, and his face went pale. He understood immediately what this meant. In all his years studying both humans and aliens, he had never imagined that humans could create something like this. The first weapons system that appeared on the screens were kinetic accelerators. These were weapons that could fire objects at incredibly high speeds. The objects moved so fast that they could pass through almost any shield. They could cause damage like a meteor hitting a planet. The Indomitable had 30 of these weapons placed around its body. Next came the electromagnetic pulse cannons. These weapons created waves of electricity that could disable entire spaceships. If the Indomitable fired these weapons, every electronic system within thousands of miles could stop working. Ships with these systems would become helpless metal boxes floating in space. Then came the directed energy weapons. These were lasers that used quantum tunneling technology. Dr. Sujin had developed this technology herself. These weapons could theoretically penetrate any shield that the Council species had ever created. They were based on physics that the alien species had not even discovered yet. But the thing that made the visitors the most afraid was not any of these weapons. It was the artificial intelligence system that controlled everything. Veltharos made a sound like breaking glass. "What is this?" he asked. His color had become nearly white with fear. "This is our autonomous combat AI," Teo replied. "We call her Warrior. She is a semi-conscious artificial intelligence system created specifically to manage combat situations. She has been trained using every battle simulation humanity has ever created. She understands thousands of years of human warfare history. She can make tactical decisions instantly. She can adapt to new threats faster than any biological mind could." Unit 7's optical sensors were flashing rapidly now. It was making beeping sounds that suggested it was experiencing something close to panic. For a Keruvian collective member, this was extraordinary. The Keruvians were ancient machines who had seen everything. They were supposed to be beyond fear, but even they could feel fear when confronted with something that could defeat them. "Warrior has never fired a shot in anger," Sujin said. "She has only been tested in simulations, but she has been waiting. She is always ready. She could be activated at any moment." Lyra's blue lines were glowing so brightly now that they hurt to look at. "This is not a warship," she said. "This is a military machine designed specifically to make war. Everything about this vessel is built for only one purpose: to destroy enemies." "That is not entirely true," Teo said calmly. "The Indomitable is built to survive. It is built to protect. Yes, it has weapons. Yes, it is designed for combat. But humans built this ship not because we want to conquer the galaxy. We built it because we are afraid. We built it because other species have not always been kind to humans. We built it because we needed to survive. Dr. Kane stepped forward. He raised his hand to show that he wanted to speak. The others stopped and listened. Dr. Kane was respected by all the council species because he understood both sides. He was human, but he had lived among aliens for so long that he was part of their world too. You all understand something important now, Dr. Kane said. You have seen what humans can create when we are motivated by fear and survival. We are a young species, but we are incredibly creative. We learn very quickly. We adapt to new situations with amazing speed. The Indomitable is not the result of centuries of research. It is the result of just a few decades. Imagine what humans could create if we had more time. Imagine what we could build if we felt truly threatened. Unit 7 made a series of very complex beeping sounds. When it finally spoke, its mechanical voice seemed to carry genuine concern. The Keruvian Collective has faced many threats in its 10,000 years of existence, but I must report that humanity represents a type of threat we have not encountered before. You combine creativity with desperation. You combine intelligence with survival instinct. This is a dangerous combination. The question now, Teo said, is what the Council chooses to do with this information. You can try to destroy us. You can impose sanctions that would prevent humans from reaching the stars. You can attempt to contain us. Or you can accept that humanity has earned a place among the Council species. A place as equals, not as children to be guided. Veltharos's color was still very pale. If we had known, if we had understood what you were capable of, you would have never allowed us to leave Earth, Teo finished. I know, which is why we built this in secret, not to hide from the Council, but to ensure that we could not be stopped. The Indomitable proves that humanity cannot be controlled. It proves that humans will do whatever is necessary to survive. It proves that we deserve respect. The visitors stood in the engine room, surrounded by the evidence of human capability and determination. The screens around them showed weapons and technology that they had never imagined possible. Above them, the massive fusion reactors continued to hum, producing enough power to change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. And deep in the computer systems of the Indomitable, the artificial intelligence called Warrior continued to process information and run simulations. She was waiting, always waiting, ready for whatever might come next. The return journey to the docking area was conducted in complete silence. The 4 visitors from the Celestial Council walked through the corridors of the Indomitable as if they were walking through a ghost ship. What had seemed like a normal military vessel just hours before now looked completely different. Every wall, every door, every system took on a new meaning. Every human crew member they passed looked less like a simple explorer and more like a trained soldier. The peaceful exploration ship had transformed into something that could only be described as a weapon in their minds. Veltharos's color remained gray and dull. He did not speak to anyone. His crystalline form seemed to reflect the light differently now, as if even his physical structure had been affected by what he had learned. He was ancient and wise, and he had seen many things in his long existence, but nothing had prepared him for this moment. Nothing had prepared him for discovering that a young species he had dismissed as insignificant was actually incredibly dangerous. Ambassador Lyra's blue lines had faded to a pale color. She was not sending any thoughts into anyone's mind. She seemed to be lost in her own internal world, processing what she had seen and what it meant for her species. The Solari had always believed that they could control other species through their mental powers. But what good were mental powers against artificial intelligence? What good were mind-reading abilities against a computer that had no mind to read? Unit 7 was making constant calculations. Its optical sensors were moving back and forth rapidly. The Keruvian Collective had existed for thousands of years by being prepared for any threat. They had survived wars and disasters and the collapse of civilizations. But this was different. This was a species that had achieved technological sophistication in just a few decades. A species that showed no signs of slowing down. A species that was willing to build weapons so powerful that they could threaten entire star systems. Dr. Kane walked beside the other visitors, but he said nothing. His expression was sad. He had known this was coming. He had studied human history and human nature for many years. He had known that humans were dangerous, not because they wanted to be, but because they could not help being. Humans were survivors. Humans were adaptable. Humans would find a way to overcome any obstacle. And now the Council was learning this truth. They reached the main docking area where the inspection vessel waited. The ship looked small and fragile now compared to the massive Indomitable. It looked like a toy compared to a giant machine. The visitors stopped at the airlock, the final point of physical contact between the human warship and their own vessel. Veltharos turned to face Commander Teo one final time. His color was still very pale, but he had regained some of his dignity. He looked directly at the human commander, and when he spoke, his voice was very quiet, but also very serious. You understand the implications of what we have seen today, Commander? The Celestial Council will view humanity as an existential threat. This is not just a military matter anymore. This is about survival of all Council species. This is about power and control of the galaxy itself. Tayo stepped closer to the Vethkari representative. He did not look away from Veltharos's eyes. I understand completely. I have always understood. That is why the Indomitable was built exactly as it was. But consider something, Teo continued. We showed you everything. We could have destroyed your vessel the moment it entered our space. We could have attacked your inspection team and seized your technology. We could have used your capture to gain valuable information about the Council's defenses. Instead, we let you live. We let you see our power. And now, you have a choice to make. Lyra looked up at the commander. Her blue lines began to glow slightly. A choice? What choice do you mean? You can try to impose sanctions on humanity, Teo said. You can attempt to create a blockade around our colonies. You can even declare war on Earth and all human settlements. You would lose many ships and many lives in such a war, but you would probably win eventually. You have the numbers and the resources. You could destroy humanity if you truly wanted to. Teo paused. He let the weight of his words settle on the visitors. Or, he continued, you can accept that humanity has earned a seat at the table. Not as children to be guided, not as subjects to be controlled, but as equals to be negotiated with. We have proven our strength. We have proven our intelligence. We have proven our will to survive. Now you must decide what this means for the future. Dr. Kane stepped forward. He had been silent for so long that his voice seemed to come as a surprise. They will not go to war, he said softly. I have studied the Council's decision-making patterns for 20 years. I know how you think. You are afraid of extinction, but you are also rational beings. Humanity has just proven that it can survive anything, achieve anything, adapt to anything. That is not a threat to be eliminated. That is an asset to be partnered with. Unit 7's optical sensors became very bright. Its beeping sounds were very fast and complex. The Keruvian collective was clearly having an intense internal discussion, thousands of years of ancient knowledge and experience being processed through its circuits. The Keruvian collective suggests dialogue, Unit 7 finally announced. Further conflict would serve no purpose. Both humans and Council species would suffer catastrophic losses. A mutually beneficial agreement might be reached through discussion. Veltharos changed color. He went from pale gray to a very soft blue, then to a light green. It was a color that meant acceptance, that meant the beginning of understanding. The Vethkari agrees. Warfare would be inefficient. We would prefer to reach an understanding through negotiation. Lyra's blue lines began to glow more brightly again. She sent a thought directly into the minds of everyone present. It was not words. It was pure emotion and intention. It was the Solari way of expressing agreement. It was an ancient gesture of respect, offered not often but with deep meaning. "Then the inspection is concluded," Teo said, "and I hope that this is the beginning of a new relationship between humanity and the Celestial Council." The four visitors turned and walked toward the airlock. As they were about to enter their vessel, Dr. Kane turned back one more time. "You have changed everything today, Commander Teo," he said. "For better or worse, you have changed the entire future of the galaxy." Then he walked through the airlock and was gone. The Indomitable's crew watched on screens as the inspection vessel began to move away. It moved slowly at first, then more quickly, until it was just a small point of light among the vast universe of stars. Nobody on the human warship spoke. They all understood that something monumental had happened. In the ship's computer systems, the artificial intelligence called Warrior processed the events of the day. She examined the data from the inspection, the words that were spoken, the implications of what had occurred. And if she had been capable of experiencing emotions the way humans did, she might have felt something like hope. She had been built for war, but perhaps, just perhaps, she would not be needed for that purpose. Perhaps today had been the day that changed everything.